Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. I am the scrapbooking photographer, Linda's my name, and today I am taking part in a hop for the paper crafting YouTubers, and the theme this month is summer vacation. So that worked really well with the paper just released this month from Close to My Heart called Cape Cod. So I have the paper pack with stickers here. So I'll just show you quickly the different papers. So this one has little anchors on it, which I hope to use today, and some stripes. This one, Happiness Comes in Waves, and some beach scenes on the back. Some nice wood grain looking paper, some leaves. And so each piece of paper is two-sided, and so you end up with 6 different patterns. That's what I'm going to be using today. And the photos, I joked when the topic came up that I'd have to go back a wee bit to find my photos of a summer vacation, and I did actually go back to 2019. We had some friends come from Australia. We went up north to have a little look around the Bay of Islands in New Zealand. So it's my cousin Pete and his wife Julie, and we went out on a boat, this boat, to have a look at the hole in the rock. And it was quite choppy, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to get through the hole in the rock, but we did, and came out the other side. So we stopped and took a couple of photos there, and these were on the boat. It's probably going to be a double layout, so we'd better get started. I've laid all the photos out. I'm not sure which ones I want to leave out, hopefully none of them, but I do want to use some that are square. Now I have an issue where I live. We live in a smallish rural town. The local place where I get my photos printed has stopped printing square photos. So when I process the photos and decide how I'm going to crop them to get them printed, I do bear that in mind and tend to go out a little bit and leave more rather than crop in too close and have nothing to trim off. So for example, this photo of my husband and I is being printed as a 4x6. So rather than just trim it and hack away and see how I want to go, I've come up with a very easy plan to use a wee template, which is the middle cutout of just a scrap piece of cardstock, and I've made it 4x4. So I can put that over the top and see that that would work, as I think with this one of Peter and Julie, and perhaps that one. We don't really need that chap in the background, but the flag's quite cool to have in both of them. So those 3 I'm happy to cut down. Okay, so that worked quite well. That little template, you can trim one on your trimmer yourself, really handy. Okay, so I really like the way these overlap here and that tucks in there. Now these I have fussy cut out, and I'm just going to pop them up the top there. I might have to trim a little bit more off them. So these ones I was having trouble with putting together, but I think the best we can do is to make a 4-photo collage, which means that we will make this one to a square. So bringing in the template, I would like Julie on the side of it so that we get all of the hole in the rock in there. So if I trim just to the right of her shoulder, and then I can measure 4 inches back from there. Okay, and that gives us lots of room to use some stamping and some mixed media and the beautiful papers from the Cape Cod paper range. I think what I'm going to do is pop that on a mount around the outside, and have, so all 4 pieces will be on the one piece of cardstock. When you look at the branding strip, which we call a zip strip, on the top of Close to My Heart papers, it gives you an idea of all the colours that will blend. So this one, we've got Bluebird, Lagoon, Periwinkle, Toffee and White Daisy. So I'll mount that collage in the Bluebird, and I'm going to use the Toffee with the stamp here that came with the card making set for this range. I haven't used this stamp before, so I'm just seasoning it on my forearm to help the ink stick to it. Pop the Versamat underneath the all-purpose mat, and using Toffee, I'm just going to go around the outside of this piece of White Daisy cardstock, just to make a border where the collage will cover the inside edges of it. And on the right hand side, I've cut some strips from a variety of the papers from the Cape Cod pack, and I'm just mixing them in here, and I'll join those together with the anchor piece of paper and then pop another wood grain one on top. We might add a sticker to that a bit later. But before I stick them down, I want to go around the outside with a little bit of ink. So I'm using Bluebird on the blue ones, and I'll use Toffee on the wood grain papers. And this does two things. It covers the fact that my blade is a little bit blunt and needs sharpening or replacing, and also just outlines the paper with a coordinating colour. Once everything's stuck down on that right hand page, I can then turn my attention to the left hand page. I've got a rough idea of how I want the photos on this side to sit, but when I put it next to the right hand page, it's obvious we need to provide some continuity. So I'm just using that same stamp and the Toffee ink to go down the side of the page, making the same border so that when the pages are put together, you can see that they're linked in the middle. So I'm going to bring in some of that striped paper on the left and use a zip strip to separate it from the White Daisy. I'll also put a piece of the anchor paper on that left hand side, but when I put the photos in, it just seems a bit wide, so I trim it down a little bit, and I quite like the stripes coming from both sides underneath, and then the boat picture can just sit in there across it. So I'm going to mount the boat in the same colour as I used for the collage on the right hand side, so that brings a little bit of the Bluebird into the left, and I'll also add a shorter strip of the wood grain, and that will balance with the right hand side. I do bring them in together every now and then just to check that it all balances. I'll use the light side of the Toffee to mount the people pictures, and before I stick anything down, I will go around the outside again, just highlighting the edges of the anchor paper with the Bluebird ink. And sticking that down, I do the same with the wood grain and the Toffee ink. The next thing I want to do is make a wee journaling box, and there's a nice little spot on the bottom right of this left hand page for a box, so I've measured it so it fits nice and neatly in the gap between the photos, and I'll go around the outside of that with the Toffee ink also just to highlight the edges. And once that page is all stuck down, I'm going to have some fun with these new dies that came with the card making set for Cape Cod. So I've cut out several different shapes of shellfish, and I'm just rubbing over them with a little bit of Toffee in the blending brush, and then some of them I'm dipping in the ink to get a bit of a different look. And then for the next lot, I'm actually going to use the blending brush on the periwinkle paper before I put it through the Cuttlebug, so that I've just got that toffee tone on there. So I'll have a selection of 3 different colours and 3 different tinted shellfish to pop along the bottom. But before I put them on, I'm just going to use the periwinkle ink and the blending tool to just give a hint of periwinkle down the bottom and bring that blue in there underneath where the shellfish are going. Bringing the blending tool off the all-purpose mat onto the cardstock means that any excess ink will go on the all-purpose mat rather than onto the cardstock, and it helps to get a more even look with the blending tool. So once that's done, I can stick everything down, and then it's time to have some fun putting these shellfish in their place. I don't really follow any particular pattern, although the two brighter ones in the glacier I do try and keep apart from each other. So I've just put one starfish down there, and the other starfish I'm going to put on the left further over and then fill in between. So just mixing the colours up a bit. So we've got toffee, periwinkle and glacier, and just covering the bottom of the page with all those beautiful dyes. So bringing in a little bit more glacier on the side with the seahorse and adding a couple more shellfish over there just helps tie those two pages together even more. With the bottom all finished, I can turn my attention up to the top and the title. And I just remembered that I fussy cut those tags out, so I'm just going to put them up on the right hand side and trim off that excess by going to the back and just using my scissors. I'm going to use some die alphabets to make the title, which is Hole in the Rock. I've made some in Bluebird and some in Periwinkle. So I'm going to use a two-tone effect by putting the Periwinkle ones on top of the Bluebird and getting a shadow effect with the darker behind the light. So the straight letters are pretty easy, and just have to be a bit careful with the O's that you put them the right way round. I think it's best to stick them together before you put them on the page so that the spacing is a little better. Otherwise, if you did the dark ones first and then the light ones, they might be a little bit tight together. And I've only done it for the two main words in the title, being hole and rock. There wasn't quite enough room to do it with in the, so I'm just going to handwrite that with a blue pen. I'll just add some embellishments and some gems and things as I finish putting this page together. But please remember to look at everybody else's videos too in this hop, because there'll be loads of ideas to do for summer vacation photos. There'll be a list of everybody who's taking part in the description to go with this video. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch my video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're new to this channel and you'd like to subscribe, your subscription would be very welcome. If you're already a subscriber, thank you very much. I really appreciate your support. If you think this layout might be handy for you in the future, please pause and take a screenshot so that you can come back to it at a later date. I'm just adding the finishing touches here with a little extra sticker. I'll do the journaling and post some close-ups. Thank you for watching, everybody. Happy crafting!